Okay, so today we're going to continue on with section 3. We're still talking about parabolas. Today what we're going to do is write equations for the parabolas. So you're going to be given some pieces of information, whether it's the vertex and the focus or the vertex and the directrix, some piece of this parabola, and then we'll be able to come up with the equation. So here are going to be our steps. So when we want to find the equation of the parabola, if your vertex is at 0, 0, you're going to use this information to find P and the direction that the parabola is facing. Then you'll take that value of P and you're going to plug it in. So remember, when your parabola is facing either right or left, and what I mean by right or left, I mean either looks like the C or the backward C. So the backward C is facing right, forward C is facing left. This is when your p-value is positive. This is when your p-value is negative. And then when it's the x squared facing up would be the happy parabola. It looks like a U. And our p-value would be positive. Here, when it's facing down, looks like an upside down U. And the p-value would be negative. If the vertex is not at the origin, not at 0, 0, we're still going to use the given information to find P and the direction. And then from there, we're going to use one of these equations. And then we'll replace our given information. So again, remember when it's y squared, it'll be the C or the backward C. When it's x squared, it'll be the U or the upside down U. So let's try some examples. So it says to find the equation of the parabola with the given information. Now, notice both of these, numbers 1 and 2, the vertex is at the origin. So I can use the simpler of the two formulas. So I'm going to either use x squared equals 4py or y squared equals 4px. Remember the x squared, this is the U or the upside down U, and this is the C or the backward C. So now what we're going to do is, my advice to you is when you're trying to write an equation for the parabola, sketch out the given information. It will help tremendously. So I'm going to just do a rough little sketch here. I'm going to graph my vertex. It's going to be at 0, 0. And then I'm going to graph the focus point. And my focus is at the order pair 2, 0. Remember that the graph of your parabola surrounds the focus. So my graph here is going to come around it. So this will tell me which equation I need to use. This is the C, so this tells me it's going to be the y squared equals 4px. And now what I can do is I need to find that p-value. And here, since I've got a visual, remember that the p-value is the distance that the focus is from the vertex. Or it's also the distance from the vertex to the directrix. So by looking at this, I can see that my focus point is 2 spaces away from the vertex. That's my p-value. So p equals 2 because it's 2 spaces away. If you remember, when your vertex is at 0, 0, this is p, 0. So right here, it's telling me what p is. But you could also count the little spaces. So now what I'm going to do is replace the letter P here with a 2. So 4 times 2, and then leave the x. And then all I have to do is multiply 4 times 2, and there's my equation. So y squared equals 8x. Let's try the next one. Let's give ourselves a little visual, so I know which equation to use, whether I'm using the x squared or the y squared. Again, my vertex is still at 0, 0. So let's go ahead and graph it. My vertex is at 0, 0. This time my focus is on the y-axis. It's actually at the order pair 0, 3/8. I'm just going to label it right here. So 0, 3/8. And again, remember your parabola surrounds the focus. So we can see that our graph is up and down. So this one's facing upward. So I know I'm going to be using the x squared equals 4py. I need to find the p-value. And again, remember when your vertex is at 0, 0 and the graph is the up and down graph, this is actually 0, p. So my p-value is 3/8. So I'm going to plug in the p-value. 4 times 3/8. Multiply that, and that will give me my equation. I get x squared equals 12/8. You could also simplify diagonally if you want. Make this a 2, make this a 1, and the simplified answer is 3/2y. You need to simplify it. Okay, it says, again, we still have our vertex at 0, 0. So we're still using one of those two equations, either x squared equals 4py or y squared equals 4px. So again, give yourself a visual. It helps. So that way I'll know which equation I'm using. So again, vertex 0, 0. This time my focus is at the order pair 2/3, 0. I'm just going to put it here. 2/3, 0. Again, remember your parabola surrounds the focus. So you see how it's opening like the letter C. So this tells me I'm going to be using the y squared equals 4px. Again, remember this is p, 0. So my p-value is 2/3. You could also see that it's 2/3 away from that vertex. So y squared equals 4 times 2/3 x, multiply, and I get 8/3x. Now, notice this time they didn't give me a focus point for number 4. However, they told me that it was on the vertical axis. So this tells me it's going to be the up and down graph. So what I'm going to do again, I'm going to give myself a visual. So I'm going to graph the vertex at 0, 0. And then I'm also going to graph this order pair that they gave me. And it's the order pair 2, -2. And I'm just going to say 12 is up here. So I'm going to say the order pair is way up here. So because it says it's on the vertical axis, this tells me my parabola looks like this. So I'm going to be using the x squared equals 4py. Now, notice this time I know nothing about p. I don't have a focus, I don't have a directrix, so I can't figure out how many spaces away, but I've got an order pair. And remember, your order pair is xy. So I'm going to plug in the order pair for x and y and solve for p. So I'm going to plug in 12 for the y and -2 for the x. So leave the p here this time. I'm going to simplify this down. I end up getting -2 squared is 4. And then 4 times 12 gives me 48p. I need to divide both sides by 48. And my p-value, 4/48, simplifies to 1/12. I now take that p-value and I plug it back in. So I'm going to plug it back in to the x squared equals 4py. So x squared, 4 times 1/12. I'm going to multiply that. I could actually simplify. And then this becomes x squared equals 1/3 y. Now, just to show you what we're used to seeing, remember yesterday, if you had something like this, 3x squared equals y, remember we had to isolate the square term. We divided by 3, and then it turns back in to this. So just be aware that y equals 3x squared is the same thing as x squared equals 1/3 y. Be familiar with that for SAT purposes. But WebAssign's going to expect to see this. Now, if the problem instead had the word here horizontal axis, then it would have been left and right. And it would have been the other equation, the y squared equals 4px.
There's no real difference between the two, so that one's y and one's x, besides the orientation.
Yep. All right, now we're going to do equations where the vertex is not at the origin, so we got to bring in the h and the k. So again, the two equations I'm going to be using to answer these is going to be y minus k. Remember, k is always with y. 4p x minus h. Remember, this is the backward c and the forward c. And then the other one is the x minus h squared equals 4p y minus k. And this is the parabola that we're all used to, the up and down u. So again, let's give ourselves a visual so we know which one of these forms to use. So I'm going to graph my vertex first. It's at the order pair 1, +3. And then I'm going to graph my focus, which is at -1, +3. So my focus is right here. Remember, the parabola always surrounds the focus. So this is the backward c. So this tells me I'm going to be using the equation y minus k squared equals 4p x minus h. Now remember, because it's the backward c, that number that's going to end up in front, that 4p there, it's going to end up being a negative number. So let's go ahead and plug in what we know. Remember, the vertex is hk. Now, to find the p-value, I can do two things here. I can either count the little spaces since I graphed this, and I can see that the distance between the blue and the green dot here is going to be 2 spaces. So the p-value here is going to be -2 because it's opening to the left. The other way is to do the distance formula here, or subtract the vertex and the focus. I don't use the order pair that is the same, or the part of the order pair that's the same. So all I have to do here is -1 minus 1. So this minus this, and that's how I get the -2. Either that or just count the little spaces. So now that I have the p-value and I've got my h and my k, I'm going to plug that in. So my h is 1, my k is 3. That was my vertex. So let's plug it in. So y minus 3 squared 4 times -2, and then x minus 1. All I have left to do is multiply the 4 and the -2, and my final answer, y minus 3 squared equals -8, x minus 1. Remember, it's opening backwards, like it's a backwards C. So this number that's right here needs to be negative. If it wasn't, then potentially you might have gotten the wrong p-value. Let's try the next one. This time it's a directrix. But again, oh, and we're back to a vertex at 0, 0. So we're still going back to the easier formula. Now, technically, we could still use the longer formula. This is just H and K. And just remember, everything's going to simplify down. But I'm going to use this simpler formula. Let me go ahead and get a visual here. Here's my vertex. My directrix is at y equals -1. So it's right here, this line going through here. Now, to find the p-value, I have to figure out how many spaces away is the vertex from the directrix, and you can see it's 1 space away. So my p-value is going to be 1. Actually, it's -1, because remember, your graph of your parabola, the directrix is always behind the parabola. So because it's facing down, my p-value is -1. So let's plug it in now. So I have x squared 4py, x squared 4 times -1, x squared equals -4y. Let's try 4 more, and we're done. Back to a vertex at 0, 0. Okay, so again, let's give ourselves a visual. Here's my vertex. Again, it's a directrix, and it's at 1, 2, 3, 4. X equals 4. It's right through here. So again, I can see my p-value here. You can see that it's 4 spaces away. And again, it's opposite, so it's going to be p equals -4. So it's 4 spaces, but when it's the directrix, it's opposite because your graph looks like this. So let's plug that in. Again, it's the c, so we're using the y squared formula, or the backwards c. 4 times -4. And y squared equals -16x. Number 8, vertical again, so that tells me it's up and down. Give ourselves a visual. It helps. 0, 0. Order pair -2, -2. It's right here. So we need to be able to connect it so we can see. Now again, we don't know anything about the p-value, so I got to use my order pair. This is x, this is y. So because it's up and down and it's the vertex is at 0, 0, I can use the simpler formula. So I can use the x squared equals 4py. But I'm going to plug in the order pair for x and y. So my x is -2. I don't know p, and my y is also -2. So 4 equals, and then I can multiply 4 times -2 and get -8p, divide by -8. -1/2, I can reduce 4 over -8, and my p-value is -1/2. I now need to take the p-value, and I'm going to plug it back in to the x squared equals 4py. X squared equals 4 times -1/2 y, multiply 4 and -1/2, and I get -2y. 9, vertex is not at the origin. I've got to use the longer formula, but let's figure out which one we need by giving ourselves a visual. Vertex is at 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So my vertex is right here. This time I'm back to a focus. 1, 2. Remember, the parabola always surrounds it. So this tells me it's the backwards C. So the equation I'm using is y minus k squared equals 4p x minus h. So I need to figure out what the p-value is. Again, I could just subtract here and do 1 minus 3 and get -2 for my p-value, or count the spaces. It's 1, 2 spaces away, so p is -2. And again, my h and my k are right here at the vertex. So 3 minus 2 squared, 4 times -2, and then x minus 3. All I have left to do is multiply this, and I get y minus 2 squared equals -8 x minus 3. Now, the last one, be very careful. They're giving us the focus, which is at 0, 0, not the vertex. So make sure when you're answering these questions, you read it very carefully. So let's go ahead and again, give ourselves a visual. So this time, the focus is at 0, 0. And then my directrix, 1, 2, 3, 4, is right here. Now, remember, the vertex is the same distance between the vertex and the focus and the vertex and the directrix. So really what I need to do is find the middle of the directrix and the focus, and that's where my vertex is located. So I can either turn this into an ordered pair and do the midpoint formula, but again, I've got a graph here, so I can see that it's right here, 2 spaces here, 2 spaces here. It's right smack in the middle between the focus and the directrix. So my vertex is actually located at this ordered pair, 0, 2. And because my graph is opening downward, we know the p-value here is the distance, and it's going to be -2. So now let's take all our information and plug it back in. We're using the longer formula, so we're using the x minus h squared equals 4p y minus k. So let's plug in all our information. So my 0, or the h is 0. My p-value is -2. My k-value is +2. And now all I have to do is multiply this. I can actually get rid of the 0 here and just leave it as an x squared. And I'm done. So again, when you're trying to write the equation, give yourself the visual.